Let's go to the epicenter now. Toronto. Scott Laughlin joins us from SiriusXM NHL Radio to unpack. What the heck? I heard they were in lockdown in Toronto, man. What is with... Were you waiting, Scott, until the Leafs win a Stanley Cup to cut your hair? Or what the hell?
Well, I would just offer this up, Rod, to start off. I mean, I'm as much of a stranger to the barber, obviously, as the Toronto Maple Leafs are to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Yeah, I had something scheduled. About 2 months ago, and all of a sudden,
whoops!
As I dropped my phone.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
All of a sudden, as I dropped my phone, I could tell that we went back into lockdown mode, and as such, I'm kind of at where I'm at right now, and I'm just waiting for the go-ahead to finally get rid of this.
Scott, how was your show this morning?
Well, there was plenty of dissection of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Rod, and what went wrong. I tend to look at it the other way. And again, I'm not exactly Toronto-centric when it comes to waving the blue and white pom-poms. I was up until 1992 when I started working in this business. And all of a sudden, I found out that the guys on the opposing teams, the Jeremy Roenick's, the Chris Chelioses, the Mike Modanos, were actually pretty good guys. So I quickly grew out of that Toronto-centric, let's, cheer for the home team, the Toronto Maple Leafs type of a mentality. So I look back on last night. And while it was a missed opportunity for the blue and white, obviously, I look at Montreal. I think they fully earned their way into the Norris Division Final, being down 3-1. I thought that last night, Rod, they played their game to a T. They played that ultimate road game. They got the lead. There were always multiple guys behind the puck in their defensive zone. I think I counted, Rod, one time all night where they actually got caught up ice. Ben Sherratt got caught up. Only one odd man rush against. Last night, it turns out it was Austin Matthews being stopped by Carey Price, which was a predominant theme, of course, in this theory as we try to figure out what went wrong for Toronto and what went right for the Montreal Canadiens. I think the Canadiens just executed their game plan to a T. And I think if you accentuate the positives and look what they did by way of comparison to what Toronto didn't do, I think Montreal actually deserves to win the day.
Oh, no doubt, especially in their play in the last 3 games. But I watched the game. I tweeted, do the Leafs even want this game? Scott, will you agree with me that they looked almost disinterested to a point? Mental mistakes? They weren't battling? That is very concerning to me, and I'm not even a Leaf fan. Like, I can't imagine how... Did you see that?
I did. I saw it even... I saw it even more, I think, Rod, going back to Game 5 and again in Game 6, where you start to hear players talk about, hey, we didn't get a great start. We weren't ready to start the game. Well, how can you not be ready to start the game when you get to the Stanley Cup playoffs and you get to Game 5 and you get to Game 6 and you say, well, in Game 5, we've got a little bit of wiggle room. Game 6, sure, they've got their fans, but we still have some wiggle room. All of a sudden, you're in a Game 7 situation and you have to ramp it up against the team that has got Carey Price back on the beam again. And again, is playing that prototypical road style of hockey, which is going to serve you well at this time of the year. I think my greatest concern was earlier in the series when the Leafs had a chance to close the Canadiens out. They let them up off the mat again. And again, when you go to a game situation where it's one game winner take all, and you've got Carey Price at one end of the rink, then obviously you like Montreal's chances. So I think they're going to be in good, Montreal is against the Winnipeg Jets. I think that they feel like they're playing their best hockey now. They're starting to turn the corner after kind of limping into the playoffs. And I think they're starting to see some signs, not only from the young kids, but even from some veterans like Philip Deneau and Eric Stahl and guys like that have started to bring it with their responsibilities. And I think the Canadiens now are going to be a very dangerous out for the Jets.
Okay, Scott, listen. Go ahead, Clark. Go. Stuff's going on here. We're very big in Winnipeg, Scott. And I say that because they're all awake this morning. And they're writing about you. Tom says, Scott wore a Roddy Piper t-shirt on this show before. He's got the Hulk Hogan hair going. Brother! So they're dialed in. Somebody, here from Alex Nuttall on YouTube. Winnipeg has advanced more in the Stanley Cup playoffs since 2012 than the Leafs have done since 2003. It's Jets. So why fight it? Let's just go Jets. So you set a good matchup between Montreal and Winnipeg you thought would favor Montreal? I haven't even thought about the series yet, and I don't know how much you've thought about that. You were probably unpacking last night's game more. But have you sensed how rabid they are in Winnipeg right now? I love it, by the way, for their sake, of course.
Oh, absolutely, Rod. I think the interesting storyline here is, too, whereas we look forward to tomorrow night and game number 1, you've got Montreal coming off an emotional 7th game victory over Toronto. On Friday night, you had Vegas coming off an emotional 7th game victory over Minnesota. Vegas rolls right back into it less than 48 hours later, and they get steamrolled by Colorado. So I'm really intrigued to see, Rod, just exactly what game 1 is going to entail because, again, you've got the well-rested Winnipeg Jets coming off their unexpected sweep of the Edmonton Oilers. They're going to be playing the role of the Avalanche tomorrow night. Montreal's playing the role, certainly, of Vegas and what they had to deal with a couple of nights earlier. So I think it'll be, one, interesting to see if Montreal has a bit of a hangover going to game 1 in this new series, still on that high of coming off the victory in Toronto last night. And by way of comparison, I think it'll be interesting to see if the Jets can do what Colorado did. Not saying the Jets are Colorado, because Colorado right now is a juggernaut, that's for sure. It's going to really take something to unseat those guys in terms of being the Stanley Cup favorite, perhaps. But I'm just wondering, with that time off, if Winnipeg is going to be well served by getting into game 1 here against an emotionally drained possible team in Montreal. I think tomorrow night will start to tell the tale, and I think it's almost incumbent on the Winnipeg Jets holding serve tomorrow night on home ice.
Well, I love it, by the way, and I'm just going to sprinkle in their comments here. From Brady, Jets in 6. From David Smith, the Jets fan. Scott, the Jets are playing much better than the Leafs were. From Dylan on Facebook, do I have to fight for the Jets on this show again? Rod and Darren. No, you don't, Dylan. You don't. From David, PLD, PLD, PLD. I think they've started the whiteout parade, Scott. I think they're rolling already in Winnipeg.
Yeah, you talk about the whiteout, Rod. This is a question I've always had, okay? Now, the whiteout made sense decades ago when the Jets were on home ice wearing white, right? The home sweaters are no longer white. Does the whiteout make sense in this day and age? And I hearken back a couple of years ago. The Raptors were playing the Nets in the playoffs, and everybody at the then Air Canada Centre, Rod, was decked out in red. They thought they were supporting the home team. As it turned out that one particular afternoon, the Nets were the team that were wearing red. So everybody in the stands, are you supporting the red team or are you supporting the home team? If you're the Jets and it's the whiteout, are you supporting the white team, which is actually the road team now, or are you supporting the Winnipeg Jets? Has the whiteout kind of run its course? Should we kind of flip the script here a little bit based upon history and tradition? Yes, but the fact that the home team sweaters are now darks.
I know. I think we've all thought it, but Winnipeg's saying it's our thing, right? And they can't even get in the building anyway. So as
that's true.
Brady has written in here, Brady Leovold, hockey pro from the Puck Support Podcast Network, good friend of mine. You guys may have touched on this, but will Winnipeg have fans at all? I feel like I've moved to Winnipeg because it's all the people I'm talking to are from Winnipeg. They say they're sneaking around to have face-to-face meetings in the park because that's what the lockdown measures are in Winnipeg right now. It's like where we all were a year ago. Here, I can't see them. I just can't see them having fans in that building for this series. Unless you know something, Scott, have you heard anything?
Well, I think if there's going to be a chance, it'll be now for them to step up and do this. And, you know, I haven't seen in recent days the numbers in Manitoba. I know they've been going through a tough time. Happy to say in Ontario, I think we've started to turn the corner. I think we had 699 cases today, which is the lowest it's been since probably early February. So we're starting to come around. We saw Montreal was coming around to the point where they allowed 2,500 fans into the Bell Center for Game 6 recently. So I think that quietly, there's probably going to be something going on behind the scenes. The politicians will ultimately decide in consultation with the medical doctors out there as to what will be the case. I'd have to think if you're Montreal, for Game 6, you had 2,500 fans. You'd have at least 2,500 fans coming up for Games 3 and 4, if I'm not mistaken, going back-to-back on Sunday and Monday. So I would think at least 2,500 fans at the Bell Center. The further we get here, the further teams can advance, I think, north of the border. I think the greater chance that there is that there could be more and more fans in the building. So for Winnipeg, I think it's a possibility. I certainly couldn't say for sure, but I think quietly we started to come around here north of the 49th, hopefully to see better days.
Oh, I'm getting tingles here. Our buddy Don Mitchell, he's a Navy guy watching in the Middle East. He says, semantics. The whiteout is tradition. So I get that. From Joe in New York, he says, I hope they never get rid of the whiteout. It looks great on TV. Must look amazing in person. I feel like all of Winnipeg's watching right now and chime. Paulo, keep it whiteout. Think of it as the Winnipeg Blizzard whiteout theme. They're just going, man. They're just going. But let's pause the cause for a second and talk about Canada's team, the Vegas Golden Knights. Yeah, they got routed 7-1 in Colorado the other night. That's my team, Scott. And people are saying, you can't stop McKinnon. Winnipeg stopped McDavid. It was one game. People are saying this series is over. What's your take?
Not over yet. I think Marc-Andre Fleury coming up tomorrow night in game number 2 is going to have to be like the Marc-Andre Fleury we saw in the first 3 or 4 games of that series against Minnesota, where he was lights out good. So I think they'll get a boost from their goaltender, who's up for the Vezina Trophy, as we found out earlier today. Congratulations to him on a fantastic season at the age of 36, still proving he's got a lot left to give, I think. I think the loss of Reeves, believe it or not, is going to hurt that team. Speaking of Winnipeg, of course, you, Rod, being a CFL aficionado for so many years, would remember Willard Reeves as a great running back with the Blue Bombers and had a cup of coffee with Washington in the NFL. Ryan Reeves is a loss for that team. When he's walking the straight and narrow, big-bodied guy who can skate, who can hit. We're not going to say fight because nobody really does that during the playoffs. I think that one advantage that Vegas has always had on their opposition is the fact that their bottom 6 is so big and strong and fast that they can get in and punish the defensemen. I think when you talk about the strength of the Avalanche, sure, we talk about arguably the best line in all of hockey led by Nathan McKinnon, but I also think that we look at that blue line core, and whether it's Sammy Girard or Cale Makar, Connor Timmins has started to emerge back there. Graves has a certain role that he plays as well, as we know. I think that's a real strength of the Avalanche. In order to get the better of the Avalanche, I think in a series, you need to get in and bang bodies. And you need to forecheck those guys and perhaps wear them down as the series goes along. I think losing Reeves is going to hurt Vegas in that extent. I think that Vegas is the type of team, too, that maybe we sell short. Maybe we say, well, they're big, strong, and physical, yeah, but they won't be able to keep up to the Avalanche. I mean, Nathan McKinnon is maybe only second behind Connor McDavid in terms of the fastest guys I've ever seen put on a pair of skates, Rod. So, Vegas is still a good skating team. Colorado's great, but I think Vegas can still skate with them. That being said, I mean, when that top line's going like they were, and maybe you're thinking, hey, maybe we'll jump in game 1 and steal one because they've been off for a week. Maybe they'll show some signs of rust. The Avalanche brought forth anything but that. So this is going to be a tough out. I think a lot of people picked the Avs to win the Stanley Cup before the playoffs began. I know that I did. I certainly have seen nothing so far to dissuade me from the fact that Colorado is indeed the team to beat. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to win, because as we know, it's not played on paper. Things can change in a heartbeat. Just ask the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh, yeah. Well, Scott, we'll let you go. I'm loving the visit. Dylan Spicer chimes in, says, got here late, but hello all from Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia. David in Winnipeg says, we have nothing to watch until Winnipeg Sports Talk, so you have us now. Hey, we're happy to have you. Hustler's doing great on there. You must have a Hustler on NHL. Well, I know you have on NHL Radio. You know all those guys. And they're doing great with Winnipeg Sports Talk. Well, Scott, I love listening to you so much. I've told you that before. Enjoy the rest of the playoffs, and hopefully we can do it again soon, sir.
Yeah, next time I come on, Rod, I'll make sure that the phone does not drop on the floor. And by all means, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have my haircut by the time we get back together again.
Never thought about it again. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate you.
Anytime, guys. Thank you.
Scott Laughlin from SiriusXM NHL Radio. And interestingly enough, in hour 2, Zig Fracassi from SiriusXM NFL Radio.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.